I'm 31 years old. I'm a gay man, and I decided to seek help for social anxiety because I realized at one point that I wasn't comfortable in my own skin, and I was also afraid to meet others, especially gay men. And I guess it was about 3 years ago that I originally sought help for social anxiety. I found out about the social anxiety group through the internet. It was just a search. I was actually looking for an LGBT therapist, and that's how I found out about the group originally. But as I read further, I realized that I actually had a lot of the things that were being described as social anxiety. And the funny part about the group is, in order to find out more about it, there's an information session that you go to, which is a group of people. So I remember driving to that information session and sitting in my car on the curb, sort of very, very nervous about going in with a group of people to find out about this. But thankfully, we knew beforehand that it was mostly going to be presentation style and we wouldn't be put on the spot. And so that helped with my nervousness. So I finally just said, look, this is important. And I got up and I went in and sat down and was nervous, but Larry put me at ease, and as he talked through it, he was describing me when he was describing social anxiety, and I realized that it was something that I really needed to do for myself. Before coming to group, I would say I had very, very few gay friends, probably one, maybe two, and I was not close with them. Um, Now, 3 years later, and having done the group, I would say I can't even count, but close friends, I don't know, probably 20 close friends and acquaintances. I mean, my Facebook account is filled with gay men now, and all in very healthy relationships. And it's a wonderful experience. I have group therapy and social anxiety work to thank for that. So before coming to group, going to a gay bar was a fear of mine that I don't think I even realized was a fear, but it started that I needed to be completely drunk in order to even go. So half the time I couldn't even remember going, but I was so nervous that all I could think about was my own nervousness in going to a gay bar. Um, I remember thinking that everyone was going to judge me when I walked in, that everyone was going to notice me, and they were going to make all sorts of judgments about my body, about me being effeminate, which was a big issue that I had at the time, about all sorts of judgments that I can't even remember at this point. But it was a terrifying feeling, and I never felt at ease in a gay bar until I did social anxiety work. So before I did the social anxiety work, I would say I was very uncomfortable in my own skin. In particular, anything that was related to being effeminate. I had this belief that anything that was effeminate in a man was not attractive, and therefore, whenever I displayed any sort of effeminate characteristic, I felt very, very uncomfortable, and I also felt like I couldn't actually control my effeminate characteristics that I had them. I would try and control them, but then I would see myself on camera or I would hear a recording, and I would notice them and assume that everybody else noticed them and judge them the exact same way that I did. That these effeminate characteristics make me unattractive, and that it was just essentially a turn off. But I was very uncomfortable with my own skin before I came to group therapy. So I vividly remember the first day of group because I was very nervous, and I remember driving up and I parked on the curb, and I was 10 minutes early. I'm always 10 minutes early, and I was so nervous I just waited in the car, and I knew that if I waited till like maybe 1 minute after when it was supposed to start, then maybe they're already started, but not so far along that it would be awkward. And so then I would walk in and I wouldn't have to talk to anybody or make small talk, and I had this all strategized out. So I come in and they had not started, and what I did notice was there were 9 people around the room, all of which who looked as nervous, if not more nervous, than I did. So that actually was very comforting and sort of disarmed the tension that I was feeling and the anxiety that I was feeling. Um, and then once group started, Larry started it, and he did a very good job of sort of acknowledging the elephant in the room that we were all so nervous. And being in company with people who are like you and who have the same sort of fears as you actually very quickly made me feel at ease, I guess. So when I first heard about the idea of a group and group therapy to treat social anxiety, that seemed very strange to me because you're afraid of the group, so you're going to go into a group to fix it. It seemed a little bit, I don't know, not for me until I actually did it. Because once you do it, you're in a group of people who all share those same sorts of feelings, and so they're as nervous as you are, and that actually makes you feel a lot less nervous, and you can actually talk about the ways that you're nervous. And I think it's probably actually the most effective way to treat it because you can do a lot with that. You can do exercises, you can experiment, and it's a safe space where you don't normally get that. And it's nice to be around people who feel the same sorts of feelings that you do. So, one of the things about being in a group to do group therapy for social anxiety is that you can do experiments and get feedback from the other people in the group. So, you can do an exercise and maybe some sort of little performance or something like that, and then you can say, these were my perceptions of how I came off. And they can either confirm or deny those perceptions and say, I felt that way too, or I didn't feel that way at all. And because the group is progressive, the exercises get more challenging. You challenge yourself as you go, one step further each session. And so the exercise that I'm about to describe is one that I did towards the end of my session. So this is not something that I want you to think you would have to do when you enter. You never have to do this, but it's what I did as I got towards when I was feeling more comfortable with the group and I was, I don't know, getting more comfortable with my social anxiety or getting over it even. But what I did was I wore very tight clothing and performed a lip sync of It's Raining Men with choreographed dance. And I did the whole thing. I moved around the room. It was very, very uncomfortable and terrifying for me, but it was a really eye-opening moment for me because I asked how I came off to the group and they all thought I was a really good dancer. Well, what was actually going through my head was being nervous about my body and feeling that I wasn't attractive and that the effeminate end of things was really coming out, that I was showing a femininity and therefore that was something not to be desired, I guess. And they were more focused on thinking that, oh, you're a good dancer. And I think what I've learned from that experiment is the perception of others is so radically different than those thoughts that are going on in your own head. And that experiment changed a lot of things because I sort of said, I can do this. Like, I can dance like this. I can have a good time dancing something that I've always enjoyed, and I did in high school. And I picked it up again, and then now I'm competing in dancing in performance settings. I'm on a team of gay dancers who perform, and our goal is to promote gender-free dancing. So whether you're leading or you're following, the gender's no part of that, whereas normally all men lead and women follow. We're trying to break all those rules and conventions. And we perform on a regular basis, 5 to 6 times a year. We rehearse regularly. Another way that it really... I ended up on a pride float to promote country western dancing, gay country western dancing without a shirt on. It was a pretty big deal that I had done that exercise, and it taught me that you really like this thing, you need to do this thing regardless of these voices that are going on in your head. And now those voices don't happen anymore. I don't get those sorts of judgments. one of the important things that we did as part of the social anxiety group were to do experiments between sessions in the time period, during the week between the two sessions. And one experiment that I did that was particularly memorable, I think was most memorable because I did it with a member of the group. So the two of us went out together, and he's another gay man, and we went to bars. I think we went to two of them, and I was just terrified because I was going to a gay bar, which made me terrified. And he actually really helped with that because he was less anxious about that in particular. And so we were kind of this tag team that would go in, and we would sort of look around the bar, and we would decide who we wanted to talk to, which was what the challenge was to go up and start a conversation with a stranger. And what was really great about it is we could kind of almost be kind of sneaky about it, where I'd sort of say, okay, well, who do you want to talk to? And he'd point to someone and say, I'm going to go talk to that guy. And we were both interested in people who we were attracted to. Like, we thought that was the biggest challenge. And so he'd point to somebody, and I'd say, okay, well, what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to go say hello to him, and I'm going to introduce myself. And I said, okay, go. Good luck. You're going to do well. And off he went. And he would go do it. They'd have a little conversation, and I'd be sneaky on the other side of the bar watching and sort of also figuring out what I'm going to do. He'd have the conversation, and then when the conversation was over, he'd come back and he'd report back to me, and we'd talk about it, and we'd kind of analyze it, and I would give him support, and then I would go do the same thing, where I would go talk to somebody that I was attracted to, and which was very challenging for me and made me very nervous. And it was very nice to have this friendly face who knows exactly what I'm doing that I could come back to. And even when I was having the discussion with the stranger, I knew that he was back there kind of cheering for me. It was a wonderful experience. So that was a very memorable outside of group experiment that I did. So one of the things we discussed in therapy for social anxiety are core beliefs. And one of my core beliefs was that no one I'm attracted to could be attracted to me. And that is exactly the phrasing of it, and that people I'm attracted to, by definition, cannot be attracted to me. And the reason that as we explored that further, I realized the reason was I had this deep-seated belief that to be effeminate was not attractive, and that masculine guys are only attracted to masculine guys. So there's two levels there. One, that if you're effeminate, you're not attractive, and if you're masculine, you're only attracted to masculine guys. And I thought I was only attracted to masculine guys, therefore there is no possible way for someone to be attracted to me who I am attracted to. That was the math that I was working off of for my entire life until I did this, and I started to look at that, and I said, could this possibly be true? Like, is this a true thing? And I truly believed it. And what I did to contest that was start asking people. And I asked people a number of ways. I would just ask people I knew, but I didn't know a lot of gay people at that point, so I couldn't get a ton of feedback. Now I could tell you, based off of my feedback, that I was totally wrong. But at the time, there's no way I could do that. So what I ended up doing was making a survey that sort of assessed that. It was a 3-question survey that said, define whether you are masculine or not, or whether other people perceive you as masculine or feminine on a scale, and based on that, do you find people who are more masculine or more feminine attractive? And the results were that all sorts of people found all sorts of people attractive, and that there was no way that I was wrong. And since then, since I've had a lot more gay friends and actually been in the gay world, I was able to break all of those down and find out that it's a lot more varied than that. And what's interesting is that I can be attracted to all sorts of people too. I'm not just attracted to one end of the spectrum. I'm attracted to people based on who they are, not based on their gender stereotypes. There are certain things that are more immediately apparently attractive to me, but those are just surface level, and I very quickly get past those. And so that was a really big core belief, to say that I can be attractive just being me. I don't have to be a masculine person. I don't have to be a feminine person. I don't have to be wherever on that scale. I can just be me. And that's actually more engaging than someone who's trying to be masculine or trying to be feminine. So that was a core belief that I don't believe at all anymore. So the social anxiety group was my first experience with cognitive behavioral therapy. And I found for me, cognitive behavioral therapy worked much better than the traditional therapy I was used to because it made me work and engage towards changing my behaviors. So previously, I had done traditional therapy where I would talk about how I felt about something, and maybe we'd even find a reason why I felt that way, but I would never actually make the changes. For cognitive behavioral therapy, I actually did change my behaviors, and it made me a little uncomfortable, but in the end, I actually changed, as opposed to learning why something happened and not making changes. So I would say that's why cognitive behavioral therapy worked best for me. It made me actually do exercises and homework that changed things. Whereas traditional therapy, I just found out why they were happening. So I'm going to paint a picture of what a week in my life looked like before social anxiety therapy and after the group. So before the group, a week would sort of look like I would go to work Monday through Friday. I had a few friends. I would come home from work and I would stay home for sure. There's no chance that I would be going out. And if I was going out, they're with friends that I had known for many, 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 many years. I wasn't meeting anybody new, and I wasn't around any gay people at all. On the weekends, I would be hanging out with those same people, and that was the entirety of a week for me. And if I had to go out or do anything new or meet new people, I was always finding as many ways to either A, get out of it and not do it at all, do it for as little time as possible, or maybe do it in such a way where I can avoid the social interaction part. Like only go for the reason I have to be there. And if there's something beforehand, like some sort of mingler or something before what I have to do, I can skip that and only go to the thing that I have to do. So it was just a lot of avoidance. And what it meant is that I never had to meet anybody new or have any real sort of experience. And I never ever met gay people because I didn't put myself around gay people. There's no way to do it. And it was 30 years of not having any meaningful gay relationships because I didn't give myself the opportunity to do so. So that was a week in my life then. So a week in my life now and after the group is much, much more dynamic. So at work, I'm not scared of meetings anymore. I go to meetings prepared and excited to be there and excited to meet new people. Um, I see every new person as sort of a new challenge, someone to learn, to meet, to sort of figure out what their deal is. And I'm not scared of them anymore. And the nights are much better because I picked up dancing, a very, very social activity. So I go out to dances and I meet all sorts of people. If there's a gay dance, I'm definitely going to that one. Um, but I went to a lot of straight dances too, met tons of people. I have a really wide network there. And social dancing, that's an experiment every single day because you're dancing, it's this weird intimacy that I never would have considered before because I was just, I don't know, afraid of it. And what my weekends look like? Well, my boyfriend flies in from Atlanta, and we've been dating for a year now. There's no way that I would have ever met him. I met him on the dance scene, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I never would have had any opportunity to meet him had I not met him at a gay social dance that I was at. So for me, that's a huge, huge success, having been alone for 30 years and then finding this person that's really adding a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment in my life. So my weekends are spent with him, and hopefully more time will be spent with him as we figure out this long distance thing. But, so two radically different ways of living, and the second one is much, much more fulfilling for me. I still experience social anxiety. I don't think social anxiety for many people goes away. And what we were taught and what I totally believe is if there's no social anxiety, that might be problematic too. So I do still have social anxiety, but it's a healthy amount. It's the amount that, I don't know, keeps you humble, I guess. And so whenever I feel social anxiety, I remember all the tools that I learned and they immediately engage. I don't have to think about engaging them, they just kind of do. Every occasionally, if it's something really, really challenging, I actually have to pull out a tool and actually do an exercise or something to get myself over the social anxiety. But for the most part, it's something that I feel a normal, healthy amount. It doesn't stop me from doing anything anymore. It used to stop me from doing things, and now I'll do them and recognize the anxiety and accept it, and use the tools that I have to overcome it and turn down that voice that is distracting me from actually being present in a given social interaction. So it's still there, but in a way that it should be there. Last year, I was in Washington, D.C.'s Pride Parade, and I actually ended up in the paper as a part of it. And it was a big moment for me because for many, 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 many years, I had been afraid to go to something like that. And in fact, it was my very first one. And I was afraid because of all the layers of judgment that I put on myself as a gay man and on everybody else. And this was the first year that I really felt excited to go, and I went. And not only did I go, but I ended up shirtless, dancing on top of a moving truck, which is really hard, mind you, but we did it. Dancing on top of a moving truck, and it was one of the best experiences I've had, and I can't even remember how long. Because I felt pride in so many different ways. So it wasn't just an LGBT thing, it was that I could actually get out amongst all of these people in my community and actually feel a part of a community for once. And I felt a part of it. I was enjoying myself. I was proud to be there. It was truly pride for me, but it was pride on like this much bigger scale, like not just pride of being gay, but pride that not only can I be out and be gay, but I can be comfortable with it, and I can be on this truck and dancing and in the center of everything, in the center of attention, which was not something I ever thought I would be. And it was a wonderful experience, and I definitely wouldn't have done that without the social anxiety therapy. I would never have even considered it. It wouldn't have been an option. I feel strange saying this, and I think I'm able to actually preface this that way because of the experiments that I did in group. But the thing I am most proud of that came out of social anxiety therapy is that I have a boyfriend who is loving and wonderful, and we've been together for a year now, and I couldn't be happier with that part of my life. It's a meaningful relationship that has so much value. This is coming from someone who was alone for 30 years and finally learned how to be okay alone. And once I learned to be okay alone and did this therapy, I was actually able to find somebody at that point. And it's something that I couldn't do for so long because I was just so scared to actually move forward ever. And I moved forward, I took a risk, and the result has paid itself out so many times. And so that's the thing I'm most proud of. I hate to say I'm proud of finding a boyfriend. So it's much more than that. It's much more than that. Because it's I never could have done it otherwise because I was so scared. Because finding a boyfriend for me also meant learning how to be okay with me and learning how to be okay with what it means to be a gay man, and that other people can find me attractive and that I can find others attractive that I had never anticipated I would find attractive. It's such a thick set of things that I had to get over in order to get to this point. So I guess truly Keith is the reason that I am most proud.